From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way. From off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. I'm really looking forward to this one. This is going to be a good one. We're going to be talking 49ers news, some things that have been going around, and then also it's a live Q&A. So if you have any questions, go ahead and start populating chat with any questions, and we'll get into those. This is going to be a fun time. We're getting so close to Memorial Day weekend, and everyone's going to be getting busy. And what's up, Paul? How's it going? And I guess I got to start right with the big news. It was kind of flirted with last night, and then now there's conversation about it today. But Deebo Samuel's back in the Bay Area. What does that mean? I saw that people were posting it on Twitter and saying, could this mean a contract extension is coming? Could this mean that Deebo Samuel is back for minicamp? I don't know. It could also just mean he's back for the Memorial Day weekend. I have no idea exactly why Deebo Samuel is back, but he is. So Deebo Samuel is in town, and so now with Deebo back in the Bay, maybe something will happen. But I just thought I would go ahead and talk about it since everyone was starting to mention it within the last hour over on Twitter. So Deebo Samuel back in the Bay Area, and the 49ers have a lot of things going on. First off, they had some comments from that have been going around from offensive line coach Chris Forrester that I thought were really interesting. Of course, there were comments as well from Brian Griese, which I found to be telling as well. The first, though, I'm going to talk about what Chris Forrester had to say in regards to Aaron Banks, and he was speaking to David Lombardi about this, and he said that David Lombardi said that he's very bullish in the fact Aaron Banks is going to be grabbing the left guard spot. And he talked about the fact that that is Aaron Banks' natural side and natural spot to be is over at left guard. I found that to be interesting. I think that really does put Aaron Banks in the driver's seat to be the left guard to take over for Laken Tomlinson. So I thought that was interesting, and it finally gave a little bit of understanding of what is going on, with the 49ers offensive line. And Chad is going up, and Paul says he's going to the Warriors game, but which 49ers players will go to the game with him, if any? Ooh, good call, Paul. So he's here for the Warriors game. He's going to see, what happens with that, and that's why he's here. So that makes a lot of sense, but he's here, right? Do you think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are going to stalk him while he's here, try to get him under contract? Just teasing a little bit, but that's good info there, Paul. Brad says, just another quiet week in 49ers land. Yeah, it really is, right? What's up, Grish? Welcome to chat. Welcome, Sean. Welcome, everyone that jumped in. Jess as well. This is a fun conversation, and even though we brought up Deebo, we're talking about Aaron Banks, and the fact that he's going to be the left guard, it appears, and Chris Forrester really wants this to happen, and he's motivated about Aaron Banks being that left guard and being able to play that position. And there's been a lot of questions, moving forward, especially from last year, about Aaron Banks, because Aaron Banks never really got on the field at all. We saw him at practice, then he wasn't a part of the group that was suiting up, and then pretty soon he was a part of the group that was suiting up, and he was available for games, but he never got in. Part of the reason he never got in is, number one, Laken Tomlinson doesn't miss football games. Number two, Daniel Brunskill doesn't miss football games. When the guys ahead of you don't miss football games, you don't get to play. But there were some things that I also drew from this was, first off, the fact that Forrester said he was very pleased with how Aaron Banks' rookie season ended, also goes on to be very consistent with the comments Kyle Shanahan made in March about Banks being ready at the end of the season. In fact, Kyle Shanahan took it a step further by saying Banks would have been able to crack potentially that starting group if they wouldn't have been worried about chemistry. And, upsetting chemistry is something very important. So the 49ers, I guess, have their guard. And I say I guess because I don't know for sure, but I guess the left guard of the future is in fact going to be Aaron Banks. That all signs are pointing to that. So maybe a little bit of understanding. And I see in chat, Brad Jones says, are we going to discuss the events of the week with Cones and Kinlaw? Brad, I don't know how much you want to get into that. I mean, we could have a little bit of a conversation about that if you want. Over on Patreon, it'll be going up on Saturday. Me and Horst are having a conversation in slightly offsides about the Cone Kinlaw situation, and then some other 49er topics, including the offensive line and stuff like that. I can get into it a little bit. I don't know how much you guys really want to talk about that, but it's definitely been going pretty strong on 49ers Twitter and the 49ers land. I don't know how much of that has to do with the football team, so I don't always like to talk about that stuff, but we can get into it a little bit if you guys want to. And then Sean says, any news on Mack? Pro Football Talk is saying that all signs are starting to point towards Mack retiring. And there was a little bit of information about Mack, and I'll jump to Mack before I go back. We've been having people ask us about Mack. What would happen if he retired? What would that money look like? How much money would the 49ers get back? So I went ahead and looked it up, and if Alex Mack decided to retire post June 1, the 49ers would have $1.225 million in dead money. So $1.225 million in dead money, but they would have a cap savings of $5.5 million. Here's the interesting part, though, and what's up, Daniel? Go Dolphins. $5.5 million in cap savings. However, Alex Mack, in an interesting part of it, because of the signing bonus and the way that they split up, would owe the 49ers $2.5 million. So $2.5 million would be owed back to the 49ers from Mack. And we'll see. I mean, we could take whatever it's worth, right? We saw that when OTAs happened, Mack was still listed in the alphabetical order on the roster, and of course he is a part of this team right now until he officially retires or whatever happens with that. But I thought that was interesting that Mack would actually have to pay out money. So hopefully Mack does come back. I think it would be nice there because that would be important. Garish says, I was about to ask about Kinlaw and Grant. And then David Campbell says, can't the 49ers just ban Cone from the facilities? When it comes down to it, I mean, I saw some of the things that were going on a little bit with that conversation. I don't know exactly what would happen with he is a credentialed member of the NFL media. He has access to the team in the locker room. The NFL would have to handle that. And when it comes down to it, you go through the NFL to be able to get credentialed. And it's a tough, long process. I don't know exactly what the status is for credentialed members and what the NFL would do. But, anytime it's getting to this point and the amount of players that are speaking out about it, I don't know what's going to happen with it. I don't know if they can ban him. I don't know. I honestly don't. So we'll see what happens with all that. I just know that this thing is definitely blown up into now enough where the national media is picking it up. And I think there's going to be a lot of focus on this situation because I think it take the people out of it, who it is. I mean, we have an understanding of who Grant Cone is, but let's take Grant Cone out of it. Let's take Javon Kinlaw out of it. And I think the bigger conversation is, what happens if a media member, is handling situations like this enough to where enough players feel they have to respond. I think that's a huge question about, what is allowed and what's not. And maybe there needs to be some sort of, understanding of what those are, but I don't make those rules. I'm not really abreast to what exactly those rules are. I just know that, I'm sure the NFL, the way that they protect the shield, is not going to be super happy with this interaction between a media member and a player, and they're going to want to somewhat smooth this thing over and work it out. So I think that that's how it's going to go. I don't know what's going to happen with any of the his credential or anything. That's I don't know. I don't even know what's going on. And Dimitri's saying Grant is not going anywhere. Stop hating. If it's hate from the chat, then that's fine. I'm not hating on Grant Cone. And I don't really have I'm not going to go in there and just say that what Grant Cone did was wrong or what Javon Kinlaw did was wrong. I think Javon Kinlaw had some things that he needed to say, and he was definitely getting it. And then Sion Elite is saying, I heard they already worked it out. Yeah, they had a meeting behind closed doors with John Lynch. Grant Cone talked about it on his channel. Apparently they squashed it. However, someone should have told Javon Kinlaw, because he said he just did that for his team and he's not done with it. So who knows? Who knows? And Tony Chaw says he got the job because his dad liked what he said about Kyle. I don't know. I mean, it definitely doesn't help. I know that Grant Cohn, did deal with some stuff where he was removed from his position for a while or was struggling after the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and he found a way to get it with SI. He works hard, so I think that's what's going on, and you guys are going to have the conversation, I'm sure, in chat about this. And and Demetrius saying not me, thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, when it comes down to this, I'm not abreast of the entire situation. So I'm speaking from secondhand. You hear what you hear from Grant. You hear what you heard from Kinlaw. But really, without being there and understanding the full situation, I can't give a full idea of what is going on there. So I don't know what's going to happen with the credential. Really, I don't. I don't know what's going to happen with Kinlaw, if he's going to be disciplined. The only thing I do know is I'm sure the NFL doesn't like this sort of interaction. And when it comes down to it, since we're talking about Alex Mack and the money that would happen if he was to retire, that $5.5 million would go a long way for the 49ers. However, what would that money be, used for? I guess for draft picks as well. But I definitely think Alex Mack is worth keeping that $5.5 million. So I definitely hope he comes back and the Niners have that there, because there's been some conversation about Jalen Moore this week. And we talked about it a little bit earlier this week, that Jalen Moore, potentially could be the right guard. So I don't know. And, David Campbell saying, if I was a player, I would refuse to talk to him or answer his questions. I don't know if they're allowed to. I really don't. So I really don't. And, Robert Aguilar saying, bro, they should do something to both of them. Take Cohn's credentials and suspend Kinlaw. And they could, something could happen with the NFL. I know that they're very important. They really want to protect the shield, and these owners aren't going to be happy about this interaction. So there you go. But Jalen Moore potentially going to right guard during OTA practice, and Matt Maiocco was talking about this, and then he in fact did play guard. And I don't know if anyone saw this, but I can go over a little bit of the O-line groupings. Of course, there's players not at OTAs, not present: Alex Mack, Trent Williams, Mike McGlinchey, or Daniel Brunskill. Now, Brunskill is there, of course. McGlinchey's there. Brunskill's dealing with knee tendonitis, so he's not doing any practice. Mike McGlinchey, of course, dealing with the injuries and coming back from having, the major injuries that he had. So they're going to be figuring that out. But the first O-line group to go out there was Colton McKivitz at left tackle, Aaron Banks at left guard. So there you go. Aaron Banks pretty much solidified right there, right? And then you've got Brendel taking the first snaps, which is not surprising at all. He would be the understudy, to Mack before, so he would have an understanding of this offense and be able to do it. What is up, Spy Nick Danger? I hope you're doing it, doing big things this weekend and have a good time. So welcome to chat. And then Jalen Moore took the first reps at left guard. So the things that Kyle Shanahan has been saying about potentially Jalen Moore being able to go and compete with Daniel Brunskill, it looks like Moore got first team reps. Of course, Brunskill's not available, and then Justin Skule at right tackle. And what is up, Tommy? How is it going? Tommy calling himself the GOAT, I believe. Oh, well done. And then Warren says, heard that Deebo sighting in the Bay Area. Yeah, Warren. And Paul earlier in chat brought up a very good point. He's probably there for the Warriors game, so he's probably in town to watch the basketball game. So as 49ers fans, we're probably reading a little bit more into this than we probably should. And then Sean says, if McGlinchey is not 100, then who take at right tackle? I think it depends on who's going to be available. It looks like Moore could be moving into right guard. I think they believe that McGlinchey's going to be ready. If McGlinchey's ready, then that's easy, right? If not, it could be Jalen Moore. It could be Daniel Brunskill. Whoever they feel is the best at, to play right tackle. It also could be a young guy like Spencer Burford, but I do believe Brunskill or Moore would be the leaders in the clubhouse to play right tackle if Mike McGlinchey wasn't ready. Now, the second O-line group was Schluter, and then it was Zakel at left guard, Sutherland at center, which surprised me a little bit that Sutherland was taking the center snaps there. Burford was right guard, so Burford was playing in with Moore playing right tackle. And then with the third O-line group, it was Schluter again. This time, Jason Poe playing left guard, Donovan West playing center. So Sutherland right now over West. Of course, West first practice ever in OTAs, so he's got a lot of learning to do. Spencer Burford getting second reps again at right guard, and then Alfredo Gutierrez getting at right tackle. So I think that is kind of an idea of where positioning is going to go. I thought it was interesting that, McGlinchey Colt McKivitz just got the reps that he got in school. They only got one set of reps. They were part of that first group, and that was it. So they got a lot of value, and some of these young guys need to get it going. And what's up, Gary? Welcome to chat. How's it going, 49er Fogies? Excited to have you here. So there's some interesting stuff going on with the offensive line, and we're getting an idea now of how this offensive line is going to be constituted. And I think right now the only questions really remain are about Alex Mack. With Aaron Banks, according to reading the tea leaves, hearing what Chris Forrester had to say, hearing what Kyle Shanahan has had to say about Aaron Banks, it looks like Banks is prepared and ready to be the left guard. So left guard there next to Trent Williams, and then you've got potentially a battle at right guard. Now, if Alex Mack doesn't come back and they decide to move Daniel Brunskill into center, that would solve the guard spot, as well as I believe Jalen Moore then would have the heads up of being able to play right guard. So the conversations are a little bit easier now that we know Banks has a better chance to play left guard than we ever thought. Burford, who I thought maybe could potentially play left guard, they had worked on Aaron Banks the entire season playing right guard. Now it looks like Burford is working at the right guard position, so potentially Burford could land there. So I think that is really, really interesting. This offensive line is going to be something that we got to prepare to watch, because it's all hinging on Alex Mack right now. If Alex Mack comes back, then the only real battle is going to be that right guard spot. Jalen Moore versus Daniel Brunskill versus Spencer Burford. And Lou says, why isn't Sakel getting snaps at the center position? Yeah, that's something that's interesting. It could be that none of the guys yet were ready to take it. With him moving to the interior, the adjustment to guard and center, we'll see what happens with Sakel. It could be just that it's OTAs, and we'll see if it develops through time or if they decide they want to leave him at guard. I don't know that for sure. So that was something that I was interested in watching and seeing. And the fact that Sakel was taking left guard snaps didn't surprise me too much, because we heard also that Poe could also play center, but he was playing left guard as well. So it could just be these groupings. We'll see what happens when we get to mandatory minicamp and all the players are there and ready to play. Potentially, then you'll get an idea of where these guys really are slotted. And what's up, Jason? Welcome to chat. And Brad Jones says, I think Nick Z being played at left guard is just easing him into his first OTA so he doesn't get overloaded straight off the bat, more than any idea about Mack. Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's already adjusting to moving to the interior. They gave Burford a lot of reps at the right guard spot, and then Zakel getting the reps at the left guard spot. But as they consistently bring in the guys like Trent Williams, Mike McGlinchey, we know McGlinchey won't be around until training camp, so we'll start to get a better idea of how these guys are slotted and how the competition is going to play out. And Tommy says Burford is day one starter. Book it. I like Burford a lot too, so I'm rolling right with you, Tommy. I would love to see him start. The question is, where is he going to start? Is he going to start at right guard, where he was getting the most of his reps at OTAs? Will he slide out to right tackle? I don't think he would start over Mike McGlinchey, so right guard would be the most realistic spot for him to start. It could be that if Daniel Brunskill moved to center because Alex Mack retired, potentially then Jalen Moore would compete with Spencer Burford to see who that starting lineman would be. But I do like Burford a lot, so I'm enjoying the battles that we're going to have in the interior offensive line, and that's something I really like to talk about, as you can tell. Another thing was the cap hits for Dee Ford came out, because all the rumors, Matt Barrow's reporting as well, that it looks like Dee Ford is going to be moving on. The 49ers are going to move on from him. And his cap hit will be $5.83 million in 2022 and 2023. By cutting him post June 1, the 49ers saved $1.1 million in 2022. And in 2023, they saved $2.8 million. So, I mean, you're taking that huge cap hit of 5.83 because of the dead money, but you're freeing up, almost $4 million in the long run between the 2 years. So that might be something they're going to do. I've seen some people talking about maybe the 49ers should just let this play out, see what he can do, see what he looks like coming in for training camp, and maybe they will. Maybe they'll take a look at him. Maybe they don't have to cut him right after June 1st. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. We'll see if he ends up showing up, if they don't cut him, to mandatory minicamp. And that would be something interesting, because the 49ers are already absolutely locked and loaded at the edge rush position. And Paul is saying, I pencil Burford in at right guard. So there is a lot of people that definitely like Spencer Burford, and I think Burford has the ability, to be one of those guys that can start. And we'll see. We'll see how this thing develops. And if Spencer Burford is a starter, then the 49ers absolutely hit it out of the park in that fourth round, going ahead and getting him. And Jason says, I think Ford should do them a solid and retire so the cap isn't that big. Yeah, if he retires, I don't know how much money they ultimately save. I believe because of the 2 restructures that they've done, he's still going to cost them money. If you retire, the 49ers are still stuck with the dead money as part of the contract, because we know this from Joe Staley. We know this from Weston Richburg. It can be eased by the way that they work out contracts, but it appears that, no matter what, they're going to eat some money out of this. So Dee Ford has done a lot for the 49ers over the last 2 years as far as contract goes, renegotiating, restructuring his deal to free up more work. But I don't know. Brad just said they could easily rework Ford's deal again if they are going to cut him. I don't know if they can. I think they already worked out every sort of amount of money that they could get out of this. So I think that's just, potentially this is just what's going to happen from Dee Ford. So the other thing that came up is now we can start talking about the actual dates. Now that we know the preseason games are going to be, we can actually talk about when this roster is going to be cut down. And that's one of the things that's going on right now is the 90-man roster is intact. The Niners have 90 players. Of course, this doesn't mean that these are going to be the 90 guys you're going to see at training camp. We all know that once they go through, OTAs and then mandatory minicamp, potentially players could get moved as far as get cut, get signed. There's a lot of movement that happens with the 90-man roster. But once the 90-man, is pretty solid when we get into training camp, the first cut, which these numbers always kind of shock me because they cut like the least amount of people, right? It's always hard to get cut right away. But on August 16th, the 49ers would have to cut from 90 to 85. 5 guys is that initial cut. And then when you go August 23rd, the cut would go from 85 to 80. So after the first game against the Packers, they got to cut to 85. After the game against Minnesota and those joint practices, they're going to cut from 85 to 80. That means a total of 10 guys have been cut in the first 2 cuts. So you keep, a lot of your players for that last game. And then August 30th, they cut from 80 to 53. And that final 53 is the Tuesday after the preseason game is when that happens. Yeah, and go ahead and fill chat. I see people that are kind of bringing some questions in chat. Fill the chat up with questions. I'm really looking forward to getting into all those. And John San Francisco says, who will be tied into? I think it's going to be Charlie Warner. I think Charlie Warner, showed himself to be ready to go. He's really good as an inline blocker. He's able to get to the next level. And Brad was asking, do you think Kroft has a chance to be tied into? I'm going to say he does have a chance. I think Charlie Warner is ahead right now. He's a guy that 49ers invested a draft pick in. He's been in the system for 2 years, so he has an understanding of what they want. And he works with George Kittle all the time. So Charlie Warner's main thing is he needs to keep developing in the passing game. If he becomes a better receiver and a better threat in that direction, then potentially, he can be the tight end too. But I do think they brought in Kroft to be able to push him to get after it because that's what they want. That's what they want. They want competition at the position. They want to improve that position. And that was a nice move. And Tommy Huxley just got the entire chat hungry. Thanks a lot. 5 guys and fries. It sounds, 5 guys is pretty delicious. So thanks a lot, Tommy. We really appreciate that. Now everyone's hungry. And Paul says, I believe we'll have a lot of vulture teams hovering around our cuts, as well they should. And that's why the 49ers should take an approach to try to, go ahead and not cut as many as trade players. So you hold players around that have that value and then be able to move them towards the end of training camp and the preseason if you know they're not going to make the team. So that way you can get the most draft capital back that you can. Now, the 49ers have a lot of picks. They've been picking up compensatory picks like crazy with all these different coaches and front office personnel going to other teams. But you're right. That's what's going to happen around the league. The 49ers have one of the most talented 90-man rosters there is. So they're going to be looking to poach some of these players. Seattle's going to be looking to get better and add some players. We know they're always looking for it as well. And San Francisco says if Kroft can add blocking, he'll make it. Kroft's a pretty good blocker. So, I mean, Croft has a really good chance. I think Croft could make this team. I think he could be the third tight end, but I don't know for sure. We'll see. He's going to have to battle, Ross Dwelley, and Tommy's bringing up Ross in the chat. Yeah, Ross Dwelley is going to be a guy that's going to have to compete right now, and they've got Jordan Matthews, they got Croft. These guys are coming in to push, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with this position. But finally, there's competition. Every other year, it's been pretty clear who the starting three guys are, not starting, but who the three guys were going to be on this 53-man roster at the tight end position. This is a year finally where you're like, it could be three different guys as tight end three, and I think that's something good. That means the 49ers did what they wanted to do and really get a lot of competition. So Brad Jones says, so it leaves Cone's boy Dwelley looking from the outside in. It could. I mean, Ross Dwelley's been working his butt off. I'll give him that. He's been working out with George Kittle in Tennessee, and he's really been busting his hump, and he's gotten bigger and more physical in the last couple of years. But when it comes to Dwelley's got to get better as a blocker, and then right now he's pretty much a liability in that area. At times he makes his blocks, but we've seen him being used less and less in that situation. We know Charlie Warner's a really good blocker, so they always use him in that. And that's the problem. If you could put Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelley together, you would have a really, really nice tight end too. They could block, they could go out for passes, they catch the ball pretty well. I mean, Dwelley does a good job in the receiving game. He just doesn't get as many opportunities because he doesn't block as well. And if you don't block, you don't get the rock. That's what Danny Gray said, and that's the truth. And so I think that's how the 49ers are viewing the tight end position right now. And Mr. Corey says, Ant, what's the show topic? We're doing a news update. We talked a little bit about the offensive line. There was a small little tidbit about the Grant Kinlaw situation, and now we're just in full Q&A. So if you have questions, go ahead and throw them in there. I'm open to answering any of the questions that come through chat, because that's what this is about. It's about interacting. That's what we usually do on Thursdays, and I always enjoy it because we get some really great questions, some great comments, and it usually invokes some pretty good conversation. So that's what I'm looking forward to on this great Thursday night. Looking forward to having a cool conversation before we get into this weekend. And Robert Aguilar says Ross Warner would be really cool. It would. Yeah, there you go. Put those two guys together. They both have potential. They just need to develop. If Ross Dwelley can develop his blocking game at a higher level, he's a really nice, solid tight end too. If we were getting the Ross Dwelley we saw in 2019, now I think everyone feels comfortable with him being tight end too. The problem is he's kind of been passed over by Charlie Warner, and I didn't think that was possible initially. So Charlie Warner's been really improving. I mean, he went from OTAs last year struggling a little bit on his routes, knowing which routes to run, to going ahead and becoming tight end too. So you got to give him credit as well, and maybe he can continually get better. Tommy says, Ant, how concerned are you about the pass pro this season? I'm a little bit concerned, and really what I'm concerned with right now is continuity. I think depending on what happens with Alex Mack will tip me one way or the other, because I think if Alex Mack is there in the center and you have Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey on the two tackle spots, you at least have stability, right? And we know that Daniel Brunskill could play a guard, but if they do go to Jalen Moore and Aaron Banks, that's where you're going to have your issues. Now, Jalen Moore is a really good pass blocker. Where he's going to struggle a little bit potentially is moving people off their point in the run game. So that would be an improvement in the pass protection game. As far as Banks, as long as he's gotten his lateral movement together, I think he can handle it as well. So I'm optimistic, but Mack goes a long way, because I think if Daniel Brunskill or Brendel are playing center position, I have more questions about them and their pass protection. But I do think as long as this run game gets going, so it is important they put out an offensive line that can really run the football, because if they do and they create holes for these big running backs, it will create opportunities for the offensive line to be able to be in play action situations and not have to be in straight kick slides and traditional pass protections, sets, and that's really good. KNDR says, what do you think of the tight end we signed? I like Croft. I really do. I think he's a good tight end. I like the 6'6", 252-pound frame. I think that's going to be nice for the 49ers. A big physical guy. He can block. He can catch the ball. I watched him beat linebackers down the sideline, which means he has some ability there. So I'm kind of excited about that, and I'm excited about competition, because I thought the only competition in the room was going to be Jordan Matthews, and to be honest, we just don't know what he's going to be able to do in the blocking game. If he can become the inline blocker and learn the tight end position, he's dangerous, because he's one heck of a receiver from the tight end spot. I mean, he's got legit receiver skills, and we're starting to see other players transitioning from wide receiver, big body wide receivers transitioning to tight end. And then let's see. We'll see if we got anything else. Jason says, what do you think about Knight playing nickelback the first 2 days? You're talking about Quantrez Knight. I like Quantrez Knight. I'm actually watching his film at UCLA. That was one of the things that I actually said he got a star player for me. So that's it. He gave him a star player because I liked what he was doing. I like the way he looks springy on film. He's an exciting guy. Now, there's some things he needs to do as far as discipline. He gets a little bit too handsy. He loses eye discipline at times. Those are things he has to work on. His real issues are in the coverage game. As far as being able to be there and run fits, he's fantastic. Being able to hit hard and make tackles, fantastic. So Quantrez Knight is somebody to watch for sure, and I'm actually excited to watch him at camp. I already wrote down his number, and I know what players I'm going to be going to watch when I get to training camp, because I do think Quantrez Knight can be a guy that can come in and push. But with that DB room being so difficult, his odds of making the team aren't very high. So we'll see. Maybe he could be one of those guys that ends up landing on the practice squad, and then the 49ers, bring him on down the road as he continues to develop. Grish says, how will you rate the offensive line in terms of pass blocking? If we fall below 2 TDs and need to throw, I think that's where you start to run a risk. I mean, the way they build this offensive line hasn't been through pass protection. It's been through a run-first system. The 49ers aren't exactly built for coming from behind as far as on the offensive line. I think at times that would put them in bad situations. That would put Mike McGlinchey in a bad situation because that's not what he does really, really well. Now, he's good, but he's not great at it. And we know that if they get the run game going and he's able to go forward, that's when he's at his best. And that's when he's one of the most elite guys in the league as far as in the run blocking and then the play action pass blocking. But a traditional kick slide, can be problematic for him at times. And then we would have questions at the guard spot with Aaron Banks because of what we've seen with Maurice Hurst. I can only go off what I recently saw, and I recently saw him get absolutely smoked by Maurice Hurst. But that was a rookie who was learning in his first training camp. He's well seasoned. He went through a whole season going against these defensive line players. So maybe he's a lot better. And if he is, then I would expect them to be better. David V says, in Las Vegas, rocking the cutback hat got us a sub. Well done, David V. Let's give an applause to David V. Good job. Thanks, David V. I really appreciate that. Thanks for rocking the merch and getting the sub. Awesome. I hope you're having fun out there in Vegas. Hope it's not too hot. I don't know what it's like out there. It's starting to get hot out here in Northern California. So hopefully you're having a good time out there, David V. And thanks so much for that. And Paul says Shanahan seems to be very high on Knight. Good. I like Knight as well. Knight was one of the guys that jumped off on film, and so was Taylor Hawkins, the safety from San Diego State, which a lot of people thought it was interesting. And Brad Jones says, do we know who's taking snaps opposite of Ward in safety group? It's Tarvarius Moore and Talanoa Hufanga. Those were the guys that were doing it consistently. Those guys were moving around. They're going to have those guys be in a battle. And that safety room, I think, is a little bit more interesting than people want to let on. I think for a lot of people, they like Leon O'Neal Jr., which Leon O'Neal Jr. is a good player. He's a thumper. But I do think people need to take a look at Hawkins. He's got some talent, man. I'm curious to see what happens there. But this safety room is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a completely open competition, Brad. Tarvarius Moore versus Talanoa Hufanga. And I think the best one is going to win. So we'll see who ultimately gets to win. So I'm excited about that. And Marvin says, watch the Grant video. Kinlaw laid the law to this guy. It was a tough one. If you watch that, it's a tough one. A tough conversation for sure. Brad Jones says, also, what did we think of Lance talking about his finger? That was very telling. It really was. Because when it came down to it, I did not know he was hurt the entire time. Yeah, and Forktal says, we don't plan to fall behind, brother. I love that. Yeah, just never fall behind. It works out. But the finger, I didn't know it was bothering him the entire season. I mean, I knew that he was having problems with it early on, but all reports, right, that he was ready to go. But he talked about the fact he had to actually change the way he threw the football and change the way he held the football, the pressure points, which means when you saw footballs flutter or maybe he was inaccurate, that could have contributed. I'm not saying it did because I don't know for sure, but it definitely could have been a contributing factor. So maybe we didn't even see the full potential of Trey Lance in his rookie season. And I'm optimistic, even more optimistic now that his accuracy level is going to go up. He's going to be able to operate this offense. So I think that was interesting. And the fact that he never let it on during the season, didn't really talk about it a whole lot, and did it now, I kind of shows the attitude that you expect from your starting quarterback, a guy that's going to go out there and really compete in battle. So I do like that a lot. And I think, I did go back and watch, and he's able to open his his water bottles and he doesn't have any issues and all that. So no. And you know what I thought was interesting was his comments about, him not really needing, the approval of social media or the media in general. He doesn't really care what they think about him and stuff. He's got the right mindset. And I think this 49ers team is being brought together. They seem very, in unison and together. And I think that Trey Lance is showing himself to be a leader so far from what I can see. Of course, we're not out there at practices, so we don't know exactly how things are going, but I would assume that he's doing a really good job. Will he make the 53-man over Demo? That's tough because I'm not sure Demo's going to make the team, but I'm not sure Knight is going to make the team either. There are some really, really good defensive backs. I mean, it's a tough room. I mean, it really is because if you go right off the bat with the top three guys, with Charvarius Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, Jason Verrett, right off the bat, that's 3 spots. You got 3 left. You would assume Ambry Thomas takes a 4th spot, and then it's competition. You got Giamaro Lenore, who they drafted last year, Darquez Denard, of course, Dante Johnson, who just seems to always be on the 49ers. And then you have the young guys, Samuel Womack, who they drafted, Tariq Castro-Fields. So there's just so much competition in that room that Quantrez Knight is sitting there behind him. Can Quantrez Knight go in there and jump over a Giamaro Lenore, for instance, on the depth chart? Yeah, I think he can. But where's Giamaro Lenore on the depth chart? That's the big question. Are they going to go with young guys? They're going to go with old guys? I don't know. And then, let's see. Twisted Clown says, where's the Jimmy G love? You know what? When it comes to Jimmy G, I mean, the fact he hasn't talked, to the new quarterback coach, I'm like, okay, why haven't you talked to Greasy? No, I mean, when it comes to Jimmy G, I think Jimmy G is just trying to get better. He's trying to get healthy. And I think he's not going to be a member of the San Francisco 49ers anymore. I like Jimmy Garoppolo, but I think Jimmy Garoppolo wants to be a starting quarterback. And he can't be a starting quarterback in San Francisco with the 49ers. So he's looking for an opportunity to go somewhere else. And I think the 49ers are looking for an opportunity to move him somewhere else. So I think that's just what's going on with it. But I have no problems with Jimmy G. I definitely am very appreciative of what he did for this team, helping turn them around at the end of 2017. And then the magical 2019 and 2021 runs were fantastic. And I think things will always remember. That 2019 team was special, and he was a big part of that. Fortall says New York Giants has to want Jimmy G over Jones. Jones is a dud, in my opinion. Yeah, I think so. I think that makes sense. And the move of Bradbury being gone makes me think that that's a possibility. So yeah, potentially that would make a lot of sense if Jimmy G was there. And, the way that Kyle Shanahan spoke at his presser about Jimmy G going to be traded, I think that would make sense. The Giants could be Carolina. So that could have happened for sure. Jimmy Gorilla says Jimmy G breakup is rough. It seems to be rough. And even, you got George Kittle talking about the fact he hasn't really spoken to Jimmy G. That can't be easy either, right? I mean, they're like really good friends going to get Slurpees together during training camp. We're the 3 best friends that anyone can have. So yeah. Robert says, what do you think the press conferences? Oh wait, 1 second, I missed that one. Number 27 can easily be cut and brought back and put on the practice squad. I agree. Robert says, what do you think the press conferences will look like from now on? I think press conferences are going to be exciting. They're going to be fun because I don't think the 49ers are playing anymore. I don't think these players are playing anymore. We know that Bill Walsh had an absolute disdain for the Bay Area media. He used them so much to help motivate his team into doing things that he wanted to do. And I think that that's what's going to happen here is there's going to be a motivation, a them versus us type thing. And if that happens, then, that could be good as far as pulling the team together. But I think that they're going to be more matter of fact. I don't know if they're going to be as playful as they have been in the past. We'll see. I hope they are because I always love all the sound bites of the players having a good time, and answering questions. I hope it doesn't get real business-like because they're afraid of the media, scrutiny or what the media is going to say or the media becomes an enemy. Because I do enjoy the little quirks and stuff that we hear from the players. Because George Kittle's interviews and stuff are always fun. Jimmy Ward, they do a good job. So I'm hoping that we get some good stuff. Maybe this will blow over because let's be honest, not all the media has these problems with the 49ers. Only some members. So maybe they'll only address some members that way. But I'm interested. Twisted Clown, and just kidding. Most fans bury Jimmy G all year. Never heard from him though. Just how you carry yourself, I guess. Have a great show. Yeah, thank you so much, Twisted Clown. Appreciate that. And you know what? I mean, that's the thing though, right? Jimmy is kind of becoming a guy in the back corner, you know, and I put him on the thumbnail in the back because he is kind of hovering over this quarterback situation. Brian Greasy talked about the fact he hasn't really talked to him at all. And he's, you know, but he's been working with everybody else. Nate Sudfeld, Trey Lance. I think everything points to Jimmy Garoppolo being gone. So if that's what happens, then then you know, Jimmy will be gone, and I think we'll always respect what he did. But in the same regard, I think everyone's very optimistic about the young kid Trey Lance and how he's been carrying himself and his abilities. And then Jimmy Gorilla says Pat McAfee dropped the mic on Grant Stooge from now on. Pat McAfee does what Pat McAfee does. That's for sure. Jimmy says Ward's interviews are fun. His confidence has turned 11. Yeah, he's definitely got more confidence over the years. I love the things that he said recently about him. He could have had an all-pro season if it wasn't for some, you know, missed plays that he had, you know, not taking advantage of opportunities, basically. I like that thinking, you know, I really do. Being critical of your game is important, you know, and you look at the plays you could have made, and I think that that's something that you do, you know, I mean, and you want to make sure that you have that ability to not only critique your game, but to improve on it. And Jimmy Ward has been around the league for a long time and understands what he's supposed to do. I think he's a really good player and a leader in the locker room. So I'm always excited to hear what Jimmy has to say, and I feel like he's gotten more comfortable in front of the media, got more comfortable in what he wants to say. If you go back and watch early interviews, it didn't look like he wanted to be there. And I'm not sure he still wants to be in front of the media. I don't think a lot of the players really enjoy or bask in that. But he definitely knows how to handle it at a high level now. Brad Joe says, I don't think players have a grudge against the Bay Area media. It's more the national media. It could be. We'll see, though, because, I mean, a lot of these local media types are the ones they've been going after. You know, there was the reports last year. Deebo maybe had some concerns about Jennifer Lee Chan, who she's, you know, a local media as well. So I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the media. All I know is I think that it was interesting with them doing Zoom for a couple years, and then now they're back in person. I don't know how that has strained everything. But yeah. Marvin Rose. I'm not saying any names, initials, but they were GD. He's just putting it out there. I love that. And you know what? I mean, that's the thing, right? Some people, you can decide who you want to listen to, who you want to interact with in the 49ers land. I mean, that's all up to you. You decide, you know, what content you engage in, what content you don't, and that's okay. You know, and however you want to follow your team, you're entitled to do that. And, you know, that's fine. If you listen to, you know, John Chapman, great. You know, you love John Chapman. If you listen to Grant Cohn, great. Like that's who you like to listen to. You know, and I find that I like who I like to listen to, and I don't always agree with everyone's opinions, even the people I like to listen to. I don't agree with their opinions, but a lot of times it can expand your understanding and your, you know, I guess it could get your mind really thinking about what they're doing and thinking, changes your perspective on at times. Other times you just get more steadfast in your beliefs and just dig in. I'm not one that's easily swayed on my beliefs. I will a lot of times take into account what people are saying and have a nice conversation. And I can disagree with somebody and still be absolutely civil about it. But I think that, you know, there are so many different content creators out there. There's a lot of different groups that you can go to and watch about, you know, 49ers. And when we did, you know, all of our draft build up and we had War Room, we had a lot of guys, you know, come through that were really nice people that we had a lot of fun working with, and it was exciting. And thanks, Marvin Rose says, I like you guys. Marvin says, I watched Grant one time, make that two. He did not impress me a bit, if that matters. I'll be honest, I watched Grant Cohn some when, you know, like I guess when he was first getting on YouTube, I watched a little bit of it because that was you know, he was the big one, right? And so I watched a little bit of it, but I don't watch Cohn, to be honest, very much. Occasionally I'll catch something that he did or whatever, but I don't consume a lot of 49ers content anymore. To be honest, I'm so busy researching and studying and doing things for what we do that I have, you know, kind of gotten it down to a couple of people that I listen to continuously. But if there's something going on, I might want to listen to a bunch of different perspectives, then maybe I will, you know, go to some guys that I don't normally go to and check out what they're saying. Because, you know, their perspective, even though I may disagree, it could also, get me thinking. And Sean says, I wish you and Brad could get a show going. Yeah, we reached out to Brad before about doing some stuff with War Room, but he was getting ready to go on vacation. Didn't seem like anything materialized there. But Brad does a good job, so maybe down the road we could do something with him. I would definitely like that. I think Brad's one of the good ones, and I respect his opinion when it comes to offensive line. And so, yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Paul says, I definitely enjoy listening to people who are more knowledgeable or have coaching backgrounds and not just giving their opinion. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way that I see the game now is you completely through a coaching perspective. So I understand that it does change the way you look at football. And that's the thing. Some people do really enjoy opinionated, commentary, and some, want more fact-based X's and O's, and both are fine. But yeah, when you find one that you like, you lock onto it. That's why I listen to John Chapman, because he has a coaching perspective like me. And it doesn't mean I agree with everything he says, and I'm sure he doesn't agree with everything we say or what I say. But when it comes down to it, we know where each other's coming from, and that's what's kind of fun. I love that. Yeah, Jimmy Gorilla says, felt like he was giving jabs instead of insights to the player of the game. It can, yeah, that's how it can be. Marvin Rose says, watch GM football some. Peter Schrager and other guys are good. I do like Peter Schrager. I listen to Peter Schrager at times, and Good Morning Football. Watch that at times if I have an opportunity, but I don't always have an opportunity with how busy I am. And Lawrence says, and honestly, I'd rather watch your show without Alex. Oh, Lawrence, come on, man. Come on. Alex is a good dude. Alex does a good job. Brad, Alex is on a little bit of a break. He took a couple weeks. He's just got a lot of life things going on. I don't know if you know, but he's getting married in October. So he's going to be handling that right now. That's why he hasn't been here. But he's, he'll be back pretty soon, and we'll be getting after it again. It's really fun. So I do enjoy working with Alex. It's a lot of fun, and I always enjoy having different take. When you have a different take that sits next to you, sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't. But when we do, we get to bounce things off of each other. So it makes for a lot of fun, and I've been enjoying doing these shows and doing it the last couple weeks and holding it down with everybody. I've had a lot of fun, but it's definitely different when you have Alex, when I have Alex with me. Alex does a pretty good job, so I really enjoy working with him. And Grish says, I enjoy listening to the show when I first turned it on and figured it out. Yeah, thank you, Grish, for being in chat all the time. Really appreciate your commentary, your questions. You do a good job. So thanks for coming through. And I do like Alex being here with me. It's a lot of fun when we have a couple of guys, and we've been doing some stuff. We've been working on a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of cool stuff. Donald Johnson, I like John Chapman, Peacock, and Eric Crocker, but Ed and Alex are my top guys. Thanks, Donald Johnson. I do like Chapman, Peacock, and Crocker, so we're on the same page, Donald Johnson. That's who I listen to as well. Marvin Rose says, I'm retired and still get up early for work, so I watch it. Not going to tell you what time I get out of bed. You're probably getting out of bed when I might be going to bed after that because I work at night, but yeah, pretty much. Brad Jones says, the John Wayne Show, Chapman and Wayne Breezy are doing weekly is really good if you haven't checked it out. Yeah, I've checked it out. It's pretty good. Wayne Breezy is another good guy, so we like him. Wayne Breezy does a good job. He's been on the show before, and he's a good guy to enjoy watching. The way he has a certain flavor about him. He gets after it, and that's what you like, right? Passionate 49er fans and passionate people that like to talk about football, and Wayne Breezy is definitely one of those. Let's see. Forksall says, always good listen to contrasting perspectives. Exactly. I like that. KNDR says, I thought Alex got traded to the Seahawks. Come on now. The Seahawks don't have enough to give me back. What are they going to give me back for Alex? Come on. Marvin says, miss Alex and tell him congrats. Yeah, he's going to be getting married. That's one of the interesting things that's going to happen during the season. You guys will find out when we get closer. October 23rd, the Niners are playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're going to be doing Alex's wedding. So that's something that's going to happen, and I don't know the full fallout of all of it, but that's what it's going to be about. It's going to be about taking care of Alex's wedding at the time, and him having a good time with that. Sometimes the real world comes in and gets in the way of what we do here with the podcast, and that's okay. Life is important. And Tommy says, Chapman, Cutback, Breezy, Last Second Sports. There you go. A little throwing out some love there for Jesse Naylor as well. So well done from Tommy. I'm glad that those are really good ones. Sean says, I really love your content. And by the way, you guys vibe off of each other. Lots of intelligent subject matter. I coached for 12 years and just love the show when I can watch it. Thanks so much, Sean. Yeah, when you have that coaching background, it's really fun to have those conversations. And, that's one of the things Alex and me do. We both have coaching background. So we get to have a lot of conversations that are really good, and I really like it. And Sean says it's 2:49 in Hawaii. Wow. Well, you're just right in the middle of your day. You're just getting started. We're winding down out here. And thanks so much, Tommy, for the $2 super chat. Now you get to watch T.O. do his thing on the screen. He's getting down. And Tommy says Alex plus Ant equal effing goated. Effing goated. Thank you so much for that, Tommy. I really appreciate the super chat. And I appreciate all the great comments that are coming through right now. What's up, Lackstad? Welcome to chat. Brad Jones says, oh, he's not every cup of tea, but I like Dave Lombardi, complete opposite to Cohen on how he converses with the team and does his YouTube channel. I do occasionally catch what David Lombardi says, so I kind of catch everyone a little bit here and there, and that's why if you like someone, that's what you do. You go ahead and you watch them, and I don't think anyone's wrong with who they decide to listen to. There's a lot of good 49ers content creators out there, and so just consuming all of them, consuming the ones you want. That's what's fun. And then Shooter says, I like Eric Davis, believe in 49ers. Yeah, Eric Davis was one of the players I really respected, and at times I will listen to his takes. I like when he does his open questions, questions for 30 minutes or whatever it is on Twitter. I always enjoy reading those. He gets after it with the questions, so I like that. Forstall says TCC, Chapman, and Lombardi, who's going for 49ers content. Thank you for that, Forstall. Good people to be lumped in the midst of with those two right there. I'm a mod on Jesse's channel. Oh, there you go. Well done, Tommy. Helping out Jesse with that. Jesse he works hard. He gets after it. So there you go. Robert says, oh, Kinlaw went on the SF Niners podcast. Gonna watch it after this. Did he go on there again, or is it the one that they did before? Because Brad interviewed him before. I think it was like in March. It was an absolutely great conversation. So, Robert, if you didn't watch that, go watch it anyways. It's fantastic, and Brad did a really good job of interviewing him. So check that out for sure. I think that's something that everyone could check out is the Kinlaw interview with Brad. That was good. Lou says, "Ant, do you feel we missed on drafting a third down back? I like what I see from Price, but we need somebody on third down. I'm afraid we'll overwork Mitchell." I think it could be Jeff Wilson Jr. I mean, I was with you, Lou. I thought they were going to draft a third down back, somebody that could come in and compete with JaMychal Hasty. But maybe they thought Jeff Wilson Jr. could be that guy. Jeff Wilson Jr., maybe they're switching his role. The fact that they had a Ty Davis Price, potentially the emergence of Trey Sermon, that would be nice. So I think that having him do that, Jeff Wilson Jr., might be the answer. I do think Mitchell will get some time there. But you're right. You don't want to overwork Mitchell. You want him to be healthy. Lax says he seems like the question marks are becoming known. Hufanga, Denard, but who is the center and right guard? That's the question, Lax Dad. Right guard is going to be answered once we know what's going to happen with the center position. Once we know if Alex Mack is coming back, that will give us a better understanding of what happens at right guard. If Mack comes back, it's a two-man competition, potentially three. If they give Spencer Burford the open to go battle for it. Jalen Moore, Spencer Burford, Daniel Brunskill, winner takes all over that right guard because it looks like Aaron Banks is going to be the left guard. I think Alex Mack coming back definitely answers a lot of questions and I think creates a really good situation for the 49ers. The best wins at right guard, and if that happens to be Moore or Burford, that means Daniel Brunskill is the swing tackle, and everyone should be happy about those guys. It's fantastic. And Jimmy Garoppolo says the SF Niners, if you like these guys, you will like Brad too. Yeah, that's it. Brad does a good job. In fact, last year I sat next to Brad during training camp. We didn't even really converse a whole lot. Just sat next to him, and he was doing his thing. If I see him this year, I'll make sure to go say what's up to him. Marvin says, took my wife glamping up to Idlewild, 7,000 feet, no phone service. Took walks and played 500 rummy. So cool to be with my wife. There you go. That sounds like a good time, Marvin. That sounds like a really good time. Brad says he's still undecided on Rob Shue. I haven't watched a lot of Rob Shue, to be honest, so not sure about everything about him, but I've heard he's a good guy, so maybe I'll check him out. Paul says the SF Niners Kinlaw is cut from a much longer interview that Brad did a couple months ago. So there you go. Yeah, check it out though. If you haven't seen it, go. In fact, if you can, watch the whole interview. It was a really good interview. I went and watched it, way back when it happened. Brad did a good job. I remember Brad hyping it up. Hey, we're gonna have somebody come on, and then end up being him. So I was excited about it being Javon Kinlaw because I'm always interested in how Javon Kinlaw thinks and how he's recovering from his injuries because it's a guy that really hasn't been able to be healthy, and I'm hoping that he's going to start the season healthy and not have to try to overcome these injuries during the year, which he's been battling through for 2 years. Got to give him credit for trying. I mean, but when you see him in person, He is absolutely huge. I mean, the guy is a massive man with tremendous athletic ability. He can jump in the air, tuck his knees to his chest like nothing. I mean, he's fantastic. And Sean says he's a mod on Bradshaw. There you go. Well done, Sean. Um, let's see. Forksall says, what running back do you think gets goal line duty? I think it could be a combination of a few. I really do. I think it's going to be a rotation. I want to see how Ty Davis Price and Trey Sermon are used early on in training camp and preseason. So I think both of them would be the most realistic. We know Kyle Shanahan will often go with a heavy hand. I mean, the guy with the kind of the hot hand. So maybe it would be whoever's going strong at the point. But we've seen Jeff Wilson Jr. used in that area. We've seen Elijah Mitchell, and you would think that these two guys would be able to do it as well. So I want to see how they're being used early between Davis Price and Sermon, and I want to see what Sermon's development is. If Sermon's development is high, then it could be Sermon. I mean, he's a big physical guy, but you would think Davis Price would be the forerunner because Ty Davis Price is 222 pounds. He's a big physical running back who runs a 4.48. He's going to be nice. He's going to be really nice. So I think they have a lot of options there to be able to score around the goal line with the run game. And what that's going to do is create opportunities in the passing game too. And Trey Lance's ability to create in the red zone is something we saw on display in training camp. Saw it a little bit during the season, but I'm excited to see what happens in the regular season when you get him out there with his running ability. Because the fear of him running is going to go ahead and make other defensive players kind of hold. And just making them freeze for a second could be long enough, for one of these running backs to get downhill and get into the end zone. So I'd really like that. Shooter says, I do like Brad. I was talking about football players being real people and how some people forget because we just watch them on Sundays. That's the true, Shooter. And that's one of the hard things when you're talking about cuts and stuff. You're talking about these players like they're, just pieces on a chessboard when in reality they're human beings. So it is tough. And remembering that element of football, we should all do. And I think that's just how the sport is sometimes. Sometimes you forget that human element, and it's important that we always try to remind ourselves. So that's a good comment by him. Sean says, how do you feel about starting two safeties? I feel a lot better about our corner room. Still concerned about our nickel spot. Love the show. Can't say it enough. Thanks, Sean. I think when it comes to the starting safety spots, I think right now the leader in the clubhouse next to Jimmy Ward has got to be Tarvarius Moore. Reason being, he had starting experience in 2020, which puts him a little bit ahead. I know Talon Hufanga got a little bit this year, but not the run that Tarvarius Moore got. So I think Moore is the leader in the clubhouse. I think Hufanga is going to be in an open competition with him. And then I think they'll see what they can get out of George Odom. And when it comes to the nickel position, it can be a concern unless we're going to be talking about the loser of the Jason Verrett, Emmanuel Mosley battle moving into the nickel spot. If that happens, then potentially we're really good in the nickel spot, right? Both of those guys can handle it. They can do it in a big way. I think Verrett is actually the guy that can be the best. So that is an interesting, proposition, but they have Darqueze Dennard, who they were impressed with in week 18 and what he did coming on late in the season. So he has some potential. Of course, Samuel Womack is another guy. You have Deommodore Lenoir, the holdover from last year. So I think that the cornerback room is really deep. I like that. I think they can figure the nickel corner spot out of the guys that they currently have. The safety position a little bit more in the air, but I think Hufanga and Moore are in a battle to see who starts. Marvin says, do you think the Niners will need a sure-handed receiver to help Kittle and Deebo out? Do you think Jawan Jennings will step up, or is it Gray? I think Jawan Jennings is sure-handed. I think he's going to do a good job of being able to help convert on first down, or just convert first downs. I think he's going to do a good job in that area. But I think Danny Gray is going to be the guy that takes the top off. So they're going to be used in a different, way, both of them. But I think they can do a really good job. So I think that both are going to do a bang-up job of helping Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. I mean, because when Danny Gray takes the top off the defense, that's going to allow George Kittle and Deebo Samuel a lot of room to operate in that void that's going to be created over the middle of the field. I think there's going to be some wide open players that are going to be able to handle business. So I'm excited about that. I'm definitely excited about that. And Robert Aguilar says, so can we mention Jock Peterson here? I will allow it because Jock Peterson's had an absolute tear recently. SF Giants, Jock Peterson's been doing big things, 3 homers the other night. So yeah, I'll allow it, Robert Aguilar. Donald Johnson said, I think I'm more confident in the corners than the strong safety right now, but think they will be okay at safety too. Yeah, I also wouldn't put it past the 49ers to still make a move at safety. Jaquiski Tartt, as long as he's still available, that's still a viable option, but they have to free up money first. And we know that he's going to cost more than the top 51 contracts, so you can't sign him right now. You just can't afford it. At some point, they may be able to afford it, whether that's unfortunately through the retirement of Alex Mack, the cut of Dee Ford, or potentially moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo. All those moves could potentially free up the money to bring in Tartt and create an ultimate competition at the safety position. But maybe they're just really confident in who they got. If we just saw Tartt more play last year, we might be more confident with, how it is. You're right, Ant, having Lance will make other teams Dee play 11 on 11. Yeah, and if you saw him in training camp last year, Lou, in the red zone, spectacular. I mean, that was one area that there was absolutely no way anyone could think that Jimmy Garoppolo played better than Trey Lance in training camp in the red zone. Jimmy did really good in certain situations, 11 on 11, move the ball sets. That's where Jimmy shined. But in the red zone, Trey almost scored every time. It was ridiculous. Dude has a lot of ability in that area, and a lot of it had to do with his ability to escape, get on the move, and then create in the open field. And a lot of times it was with his arm. He's just spectacular. I mean, when in that red zone, he's spectacular. The other areas of his game, he's still improving, but that's a good one. Let's see. Laxa says Ward will cover the whole field. We're going to be good. Yeah, I mean, Ward does a really good job. Yeah, he has a really good understanding of what he's supposed to do on this defense. He feels really comfortable playing the safety position in this defense the way that DeMeco Ryans wants him to play. And I think as long as he is comfortable with it, then he's going to really do a really good job. But he's a captain on this defense, and they've got a captain at every level, right? You got Eric Armstead on the front line, Fred Warner at the linebacker position, and then you got Jason Verrett at corner, and then at the safety position, you have Jimmy Ward. They have really good leadership all throughout that defense and really good leadership on the offensive side as well. So I'm not worried about this locker room, which I think a lot of people were concerned potentially with Jimmy Garoppolo moving on if this locker room would be okay. But they got really good leaders all throughout this team. They've done a good job as players like Staley, and players like that have moved on to be able to have a funnel of these new guys that come in, step up, and keep everything going the right way. Robert Aguilar says, you think we try to sign anyone if we're able to get rid of Jimmy? They could. They could potentially do that, especially if, they have questions at the center position. They might not feel comfortable with a Daniel Brunskill starting. They might not feel comfortable with Jake Brendel starting. And they could also look to address the wide receiver room if they thought that was something they needed to do. They have 5 good ones. Maybe Kyle Shanahan wanted to go with 6. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, they could use some of that money that way. I would think some of that money would be allocated towards Deebo Samuel. Probably, maybe not a lot of it, but some of it could go that way because they do need to get Deebo under contract. They would like to do it before training camp for sure. And then next year they have Nick Bosa to worry about. And that's the one they got to get done next year. So there's a lot of money to be spent over the next couple years. Forsell says, yeah, hopefully Tartt just waiting for other dominoes to fall so he can re-sign. It seems likely. I mean, and he's probably going to be cheap. He didn't play for a lot last year. I believe it was $1.3 million last year. So, I mean, he's not a huge salary cap hit, but right now they just don't have the money to sign him. I mean, I'm so surprised they've been able to bring in all the players that they brought in and work their magic with Jimmy Garoppolo's $25 million still on the books. It's been really, really fantastic. Marvin Rose says, what I read today was the Niners are going to trade Jimmy G for cheap and for good reason. Yeah, they could. I mean, that's the thing, right? You could probably take, a late round draft picks right now. It's important to get something back for him, but really it's important to get the $25 million off your books. You can't afford to pay a backup quarterback $25 million. You need to use that money in other areas, but they have to wait for him to pass his physical. And once he passes his physical, then they'll be good to go. Jason L says, do you think Lance will be captain this year? Yeah, I think he's going to start asserting himself and becoming a captain. He'll be the leader in that, in that huddle, and the team is going to start rallying around him. And then he's already starting to carry himself that way. The way he was handling the press conference, he's stepping up, and he's a guy that's been, had those leadership qualities, and that's why you bring in a young kid and you're willing to use all that draft capital on him because you believe he can be that guy. And I think Trey carries himself to be that guy. So I think he will earn the respect. I think he already has earned a lot of the respect of the veteran players in that locker room. And I have a feeling that by the time we get to training camp, he'll have earned all the respect from all the players with how he goes about his business and handles, being the manager of this football team as far as from the quarterback position. Donald Johnson says, I like the Niners defense this year. They are better as well as special teams as well. Yeah, the special teams just got tremendously better. So I'm very excited about the special teams. And I think the Niners added some weapons on offense, especially Danny Gray, that are going to free up some things for other players. So I think that was a really solid move. Brad Jones says once the Niners move off Jimmy, they jump from having the lowest cap space, less than $1 million, to I think top four of available cap space. That's a big turnaround, isn't it? That allows you a little bit of opportunity. You want to keep, around, I think it's like $5 to $7 million you want to keep available so you can make in-season moves, signings if you have an injury or something like that. So the 49ers, are going to keep some money available. So we'll see what happens. And if they can, go ahead and make some moves, whether that's bring back Deebo Samuel, bring in J.C. Treader, sign another wide receiver, or just spend that money, on the guys they currently have. We'll see. Maybe it would be Tart. Laxus says the locker room and coach are real spicy for it just being OTA's time for pads. Let's start hitting people legally. Yeah, they were. They were very spicy already, Lax Dad. That's a good part. That's a good point. They were getting after it, and I think that this is they're not playing around this year, and I like that attitude. I hope they take that into the season. I hope that translates onto the field. Really was magic while holding on to Jimmy and Ford's contracts. Yeah, it was. Well done. That was really good, huh, Jimmo? It was really good. Lou says, I'm not a conspiracy nut, but I actually think Kyle's holding a grudge against Tart from last year's debacle. He's not coming back, my opinion. I don't think they would hold that against him because they know all the things that he did, but they could have concerns about his injuries because he's often injured, and he was injured again last year. So, I mean, that could be something they're concerned about. We know they've made a concerted effort to not have players be injured that are on their roster, so they are going away from that. So we'll see. Donald Jones said, I would like to get something for Jimmy, but if they don't, I would cut him before the season starts, and I think they would. I think they would as well, Donald. They're going to want to free up that money. I think that money has too much value compared to Jimmy as a backup. If Jimmy was the starter, you're paying him $25 million. If he's the backup, you can't pay him $25 million. You got to roll with the, Trey Lance and his $7 million. It makes sense to start taking advantage of the rookie pay scale. David Campbell says, will Cone make the 53? I don't think so. I think he's on the bubble right now. I don't know. I don't know if he can get it done, making that 53-man roster. It's going to be tough for Cone. I haven't really seen the fluidity in his hips as he's able to turn and run. No, I don't know. That's a funny one, David. Well done. And chat blew up and loved David Campbell's comments, so that's fun. Marvin says, is it tough for one player to... It is tough on a player once he gets a coach's bad side. It is. If you get into the coach's doghouse, for instance, it can be really difficult. It can, and you gotta work your way out of it. And sometimes coaches can't let it go. But when you're an NFL coach and you're expected to win football games, you better get over it because you need to win, and you need the best players available to help you win. So hopefully that's what'll happen. Hopefully the Niners will bring back whoever they need to bring back to win once that contract is open. If they believe it's Tarvarius Moore, then it's Tarvarius Moore, and we'll get that done. Brad Jones says, I still think they're angry on how the season ended. I knew they were better than the Rams, so bringing that anger into the season, yeah, I think so. I think they felt like they left it on the field, left an opportunity, out there that they should have won. I think they believe you're right, that they should have won that game. They should have went to the Super Bowl, and they felt like they had a really good opportunity to beat the Bengals, and it's unfortunate. And what's up, Forever Blessed? Welcome to chat. Marvin Rose says, yeah, that's the truth. Love the McAfee roast of Cone. He nailed it. Lax Dad is on the Mac, the McAfee train there. So yeah, it's Brad Jones has just asked Dante Pettis about the doghouse. Yeah, I mean that he put the cat in the doghouse, right? Dante Pettis got in it real quick. He never got out. It appeared Brandon Ayuk got in it last year. I think he was definitely around it, but he got out of it, and he, now he's going the right direction. So yeah, this can happen, and I don't know for sure if Tar would be in the doghouse of Kyle Shanahan for dropping that interception. I'm sure Kyle Shanahan was disappointed that he didn't make the play, but if I know Kyle Shanahan, like other coaches do, you look at situations that you could have been better in that game. What could I have done to make this team a better football team? And I think in those situations, they potentially could have done something, but they didn't. They weren't able to get the game in hand and win that game. And, lots of people are going to blame Jaquiski Tart. And does Tart share some of the blame for it? Sure, of course he does. But there's lots of plays in that game that you could have made a better play, or you could have done this, or you could have called a better play, or all those things could be true, and you could have won the game. So it's a bunch of different parts that ultimately lead to what happens, whether you win or lose. So I think that's how it goes. But unfortunately, Tart's going to have to wear this a little bit. And I think that's unfortunate because I thought he did a really good job last year. I really did. I like Jaquiski Tart. I think he's a good player. And let's see. I'm gonna start winding this down. Laxdad says our defense feels disrespected per Ward. We're coming for that whole league. Let's go. Yeah, to quit. Jimmy Ward's going after everyone. He really is. He's going after everyone. So I'm gonna go ahead and wind this down. Ernest, what is up? Just joined chat saying hello. So I'll take a couple more questions. You guys can throw us a couple more questions before I get out of here. I've really had a really good time interacting with everyone. There's been some really good questions, some pretty good comments. I've enjoyed it a lot, but unfortunately, I have other stuff to get to. But yeah, this is great. And Marvin Rose says dropping the pass was one of the things. Stuff happens. Offense should have been better in the fourth quarter. That's exactly right. Lawrence says they paid Odom too much to bring back Tart. They could have. But as soon as they free up that money from Jimmy Garoppolo's contract, Tart only made like 1.3 last year. I don't think he's going to get much of a pay raise. So they could bring him back. But you're right. They did pay Odom a pretty hefty sum. So maybe they do believe they have the guys already. Maybe. Jason says Ayuk actually seemed extremely confident during the presser, and he was in a better place than he was last year. I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, yeah, and Brand New says there was 10 minutes left in the game, LOL. There was a lot of game left. There's a lot of things that could have happened in that game for sure. So good comment there, Brand New. Good comment. Forever Bless says, I think we ran out of confidence in the big game last season. Hopefully we have full confidence this season, which should help us close out games this season. Plus Jimmy Ward is a super vet, all pro. Yeah, we got some really good players, and they're not gonna take this lying down. They're gonna get after and try to turn around the 2022 season and win a Super Bowl. That's the goal. Lou says, and if we free up money, who on the free agent market do you have your eyes on? You know what? I haven't really looked at the free agent market too much. I think it all depends on Alex Mack. We free up the money and Alex Mack isn't there. I want to take his $5.5 million and a little bit extra and go see if we can get J.C. Treader. I think plugging him in to the 49ers offensive line is something that they could do. That way, Nick Zakel or one of these other guys could be an understudy, and then you would be ready to roll in the future. So that's what I would think they should do. And I would be excited about that potential because I think he's an all-pro player. So he instantly makes your team a lot better, and there would be a huge void left by Alex Mack going ahead and moving on. And thanks, David. David saying, great show. I really appreciate it. And thanks, David, for everything that you do. And what's up, Freddie McDre? You made it in just under the radar. We're about to close it down, but I'm glad you jumped in and said what's up. So, guys, I really do appreciate it. I had a great time, great conversation. This was exciting, and I'm looking forward to getting back after it next week. So I hope you guys all have a really good weekend. And remember over this weekend to stay safe. And the right way is always the 49ers way.